And we are back with the pursuit of ownership. We've got another pre-ownership underwater for you guys. A very interesting character has come up to talk to us today, and I'm going to be really interested to hear a little bit more about his story because I don't know a whole lot about it myself, but I think you guys are going to find it interesting. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. Go on ahead.
Hey, name's Burt. I
Can we get a last name, Burt?
Burt Macklin. Um, been an associate since June of 2019 is when I graduated, so I haven't been working too long.
Okay.
Was lucky to get a good associateship, have a good mentorship here, and the dentist I'm working for, he does pretty much everything. He hardly refers anything out, so it's been nice because he's been showing me a lot of just everything. Do a lot of endo,
Great.
starting the implants, all that sort of stuff, wisdom tooth
Very
extraction.
good.
So I feel like it's been good, just getting a good experience and kind of grasp on dentistry. And one of the nice things has been he utilizes technology a lot. He likes to stay up to date on what's going on. So we have CAD CAM that we use all day, every day. And it's been great because it's helped me see kind of what I would like in my own practice. I feel like once you do same day crowns, same day dentistry, it's hard to go back. And I wouldn't really ever want to go back. So
Okay.
seeing that kind of, seeing how he does his practice has helped me learn and just helped me see like some of the things that I want to use in my own practice.
Okay, very well. So you described a little bit about the sort of, mix of procedures that's going on in that current practice. Have you put any thought towards, ultimately whether you're looking at a solo or a group practice? Are you really trying to recreate the sort of model that your current owner has, or do you have sort of a particular ownership model idea for yourself?
So when I first got out of school, I thought I definitely wanted to own multiple practices and
Okay.
have a partnership possibly. And then as I've kind of gone through and as I've been listening to different podcasts, shared practices being one of them,
Yes.
I've felt like I feel like I'd be totally okay with doing just a single doc office and doing that for a long time. But I have a brother that is pretty new into dentistry as well. And so we've played around with the idea of partnering eventually. And so that's not out of the question. But I think
Mm.
for now, it would be, yeah, just kind of a single doc. And then I like the way that he runs his office. I might do it a little bit less. So currently, I'm in an office that has 8 ops. He does 2 hygiene, and so we share those 6 chairs. And it's a
Yes.
really, really busy office. I mean, we're just seeing a ton of patients, and to the point where sometimes, like, I have 3 patients in the chair that I'm going, back and forth from. And so sometimes I'm not a huge fan of that. Where I'd like to be able to sit down and spend a little bit more time with each patient and not have to
Hmm.
hop back and forth.
Right. So you don't want to be overextended personally.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Right.
think the doc that I work for, he's gotten used to it, and that's just kind of how he does things. He's very
Can I ask a
fast.
question?
Yeah.
So you got 2 hygienists, and you guys are able to fill 6 restorative chairs from the number of exams with those 2 hygienists?
Yes, and we see a ton of kids.
Okay, I was gonna say there's got to be something I'm
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah.
And the kids come through your side.
Yes. So typically we have like 2 columns of kids, exams and restorative on kids.
Got it. And then you have a column of adult.
And then I usually have one, sometimes 2 of adult, or sometimes it's mixed with kids and adult. Yeah. And then he usually has 2 solid adult restorative
Columns.
columns.
And
Okay.
then what's the new patient flow like?
So we're in a slightly rural area. And so he has been fortunate enough that he doesn't really do any advertising. And we get anywhere from 2 to 5 new patients a day.
Okay.
So it's pretty decent. And since
Through
I've been
hygiene?
on, yeah, yeah. And since I've
Solid.
been on, we we've been trying to get more. Like he's actually starting to do a little bit more marketing, and so that's picking up.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean that's something that's I you've said a number of things and I'm trying to figure out um exactly what you have in mind for, a practice that you're going to be purchasing, what you're really visualizing. I think you kind of mentioned, three kind of major paths. You talked about, multiple ownership, you talked about going solo, you talked about partnering. Tell me about what is actually walking you through that process, because I find that sometimes when people kind of have a surface level understanding of the pros and cons of things, they kind of see potential in themselves to doing all three of those things, but they are dynamically different. So can you talk a little bit about what's guiding that decision for you?
So I don't really want to do like multiple offices. Maybe the max I would think would be two with a partner. And really,
Okay.
the question about if I want to do that is more. My brother is in the Navy, and so he's still got several years left to pay back. And so more of it's timing. I I want to start ownership soon, and so I don't really want to have to wait several years for him to come out, and then we can work on that because we don't even know if that's actually going to happen. It's just an
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
So I'm
For
more
sure.
kind of set on. I would be totally happy with a 5 to 6 office, running by myself and just kind of doing my thing. And then once he is done and kind of figures out what he wants to do, if we want to end up doing something else later on, then that's a possibility. Basically, just keeping that
Right.
open. But
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
So you're looking for sort of a productive solo office now, and then, you have other thoughts in mind, sort of in the future, bridges that you'll cross eventually. Is that sort of what I'm picking up?
yeah, yeah. Start with the solo, and if it goes really well, and my brother wants to join on, then we could open up another office and
That would be a
partner.
separate office, is what you're
Yeah.
saying. Okay, okay, so you're not necessarily trying to build that whole house right away.
No, because I feel like I know that if you want to go that route, you have to look for a different type of office, and
Absolutely, and
I'm
that's
not.
why I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not ready to commit to that because it's a very flimsy plan that we're just kind of throwing around.
And I like your approach of going solo first because it seems like you're, anytime we look at somebody who's looking at a partnership or something like that in the future, it dictates the size of their first practice. But in your plan, the size of the first practice is sort of independent of the partnership route because it's a second
Yeah,
location. So I feel like you can approach each one as its own
entity, yeah.
project without having to worry about. So I actually really like the way that you're going about it because it doesn't handicap your future, and also you can do what's best for you right now in the present. So I think that's really solid.
Yeah, trying to figure it out, just learning from you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a little bit, and this is sort of a question that interests me in particular, because I'm just like a third year dental student, and one thing I'm kind of curious about is about your experiences, coming out as a new grad. Walk me through kind of where you felt coming out of school and where you are now, and sort of the transition of getting more comfortable clinically, understanding your vision, how you come to the decision that now you're ready to get into ownership. Can you talk a little bit about that? I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I think it's important.
Yeah. So I feel like when you finish, you're in your last year of dental school, you feel like you're so ready to get out of there and just ready to start practice.
I hear
And
you.
sometimes I feel like you're a little overly confident, at least I was. And then, so when I got into practice, I was like, I'm ready. I can do all these things. I've done molar endo. I've done all these things. I'm ready for it. But then you jump in and you're like, oh, shoot, like there's not someone over my shoulder giving me little tips. And I'm like in the trenches trying to figure it out. And so that's kind of how I felt right away. And I felt like I started and was super busy and learned a ton of things just in those first several months. And because I was so busy, I was able to get my hand speed up fairly quickly, and just kind
Okay.
of learned from my mistakes. And then from there, I noticed that the owner's lifestyle and how he gets to do dentistry, I was just so envious because he got to pick and
Mm,
choose which patients he got to see. Even if I did the initial exam on a new patient and we treatment planned all these great things, and then I come to hear that, well, he wants to see that patient. So then it was kind of hard for me. I was like, man, I wish I could see all these guys, and I wish I could do this cool type of dentistry. And
Oh,
Mhm.
that
so,
sucks.
yeah, so I was just envious. I was like, man, I want to do that. And I got to the point where I felt like I know I have a ton to learn clinically, but I feel like I'm to
Mhm.
the point where I could still do a good job with, 90 something percent of the dentistry. And then I'd be able to make the money that I want, see the patients, and do the dentistry I want, and then have my lifestyle that I'm hoping for as well.
Yeah, I like that you've sort of, you've gotten to a certain comfort level clinically that you're happy with, but you understand that while there is a whole lot more left for you, you're not making that an obstacle towards ownership. You're letting yourself sort of establish that foundation and establish a comfortable baseline, and then over time you're going to continue to grow. And I like that you've kind of arranged it in that way, because sometimes I think that's a big inhibition for people. Is they're just like, I don't know if I can handle every situation that comes to the door, so I don't know if I'm ready to actually own. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of people that have made very successful practices just doing bread and butter dentistry, not doing anything fancy.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And so
sure.
I feel like if you're proficient and you do a good job with that, and then you just want to add things on later, then you could definitely be successful.
Can I interject for a minute? I'm going to go on a tangent. Honestly, I'm a little pissed for you, man. Like you treatment plan stuff and then it gets cherry picked. That's like one of my private practice associate pet peeves. Can you talk more about what types of procedures and what's going on there?
So it's not, maybe I made it sound worse than it is. It's not like it happens all the time. And it's mostly if he feels like what he's told me is there's certain patients that he knows that are difficult patients. And so he's just worried that if I try to do a more extensive treatment on these people, so like if the patient talks about wanting to, get 6 anterior crowns or something, right? And then he knows, well, this is kind of a picky, finicky patient, so I'm just going to do it. And then he doesn't really give me that chance because what he's explained to me is he's like, this practice is my baby, and so I just want to take care of it. And I would hate, for you to try things and then just kind of blow it and have an
Mm.
awful experience. Which I can see his side of things. I get it. You don't want an associate coming ruining it, but it's a rough thing either way.
Can I keep going on this?
Yeah.
Please do.
What's his long-term plan? I mean, are you his first associate ever?
No, he's had like 5 or 6 associates.
And how long do they typically stay?
A year or two. So it seems like this
Um,
is the course. Yeah.
Revolving door. Yeah.
Speaks for itself,
Yeah.
right? Like, here's the thing, right? I'm in his shoes, so I can relate to him. I know the feeling of, ooh, that's a tough patient. I'm letting this unproven entity walk in to do an exam. Let's see what happens, And from my perspective, I don't care about if the patient leaves or not, and so I let it happen. But if it's your baby and you want that control or that certainty, yeah, I can see totally the over controlling aspect of it. And oh man, I just that's not a way to build a sustainable thing, right? The leadership and growth, right? I think you feel like you've reached the end of your growth potential here. It's like for me to grow to the next level, I can't have this guy. It can't continue to be his baby, and I'm here anyway. It's got, yeah, I can see that would lead to the end of your growth potential. And that's unfortunate. I wish people did. That's super common, by the way. That's like almost every private practice associateship you've just described. So it's not like you're the only one. It just is a personal pet peeve of mine. So I had to highlight it. But honestly though, it's encouraging though, because you're going into it, right? This is a great reason to not want to be somewhere, right? Like it's not like you want something insane. You're just like, you know what? I've got what I could out of here. I'm ready for that next step. And yeah, I mean, super respect it. It feels very grounded, very reasonable, and yeah, I have a lot of respect for you to kind of reach that conclusion. And everything you said about wanting to do complex dentistry and everything is like that's cool. I
Yeah.
think that's you sound a lot like a solo doc. I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Like you sound like what you say you want, which is always a good sign.
well, to be honest, I can attribute a lot of it to listening to the Shared Practice podcast because when I've gotten the same indoctrination as a lot of people that well, you need to be an associate for at least a year, probably 2 or 3, and then think about it. And so that's just kind of, I was like, yeah, I guess I'll be here for 2 years and hopefully things get better. But if not, it'll be 2 years. And then I started listening to it and I was like, oh, there's like a whole nother avenue I can do. Like I don't have to wait 2 years, there's just these opportunities. So because of like that mind opening, then I feel like it's helped me get a better perspective and just look at dentistry differently, look at what I'm doing
Mhm.
differently in preparation to be an owner sooner rather than just kind of, I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing and then,
Right.
think of that it's this far away thing of practice ownership.
Yeah.
Last rant, I promise. Maybe not, but
It's not.
gosh, you're getting me on the experience. He's just triggering me in all these areas that I just, I hear the experience thing all the time. And honestly, uh, it doesn't matter as much as people in this industry does not matter as much as people think it does. I think past a certain number of years, especially in an associateship, but even owning your practice, people can accomplish in a short amount of time what others take a long amount of time to accomplish. And I think, yes, I'm happy that you are debunking the idea that you need to stay in a job where you're no longer growing for another 2 years just to say it's been 3 and now you're ready. Like you're never going to
Yeah.
be ready. No amount of time is ever going to make you feel like you're ready to do it. You're just got to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyway, I'll cut the rant short.
No, I totally agree, and I like what Bert kind of said about kind of getting into the rut where you're just sort of going in, getting things done, and you're keeping ownership kind of in a corner of your mind, as if at some point you're going to wake up and be like, oh, it's my time now to go do it. Like there has to be a mindset shift at some point, and if you tie that to some sort of like intangible idea of, oh, I've got this, or I've been in an associateship long enough, it just delays for no really good particular reason. So yeah, I'm glad you talked about that, Bert.
Thanks.
So now, how long ago did you make that decision that you're ready to be an owner, and what did you do after that to kind of take steps to move in that direction?
So to be honest, it really hasn't been that long. I think it's been maybe 2.5 months since I started listening and have had that mind switch. And so
So you
since
got
that,
moving.
yeah, since that, and
Now
it
you're on the
really,
show in 2 months.
I know it's funny. Um, since then, my wife and I, we've just been looking at opportunities. Basically, we didn't think that it would happen very quickly, but we just like, well, let's see what's out there, kind of see what the market is like,
Hmm.
and just kind of be more aware and more educated. So we started looking, and we're like, whoa, there's a couple cool opportunities. There's a lot of not so great opportunities. And so then I thought, I heard one of the episodes where it said like just contact brokers and see if they'll give you the pro forma or whatever, all of that information. So I started doing that and was getting information, and I even got pre-qualified, whatever that means, for a certain amount of loans and to be able to buy a practice. So I was like, oh dang, like this could actually happen pretty quickly if I found the
That's
right
great.
practice.
Yeah.
So then I just tried to become as educated as I could, listen to the podcast a lot, and just tried to learn and just kept my eye out for practices. And
Okay.
so, yeah, it's kind of been a quick turnaround, and but it's been super helpful. I feel like it was really motivating because I was kind of in this same mindset. If I just go in, I do what the dentistry that I'm allowed to do, and I leave.
Hmm.
But since this, it's been like way more motivating to be like, okay, I need to like learn how to manage teams better. I need to like trying to act, I guess, as if I was a solo doc in my
Yeah.
associateship and trying to be able to better transition, I guess, when it actually happens.
That's great. I think you're taking a lot of really good steps towards getting yourself into that position. So, as far as where you and your wife were looking, do you guys sort of have your location nailed down? Do you know if you're going to be looking at urban versus rural, or are you trying to target a similar demographic to the one you've already experienced? What's your thoughts there?
So that's the thing. We're both from the same area in Southern California,
Okay.
and currently we are not living there. We're living in a different state in a rural area. It's very different.
Okay.
And so, but we know that that's where we want to end up is in Southern California, which is super
Going back home.
saturated. Um, it's tough to live in those areas from what I've heard, but at the same time, I know several people that are killing it.
Yeah,
That
that's herd mentality, Bert. We're over that.
Yeah, so I know
We
it
broke
can be
away from that.
done. I know it can be done. So I have hope. But yeah, we have a, I don't know, I want to say like a 30-mile radius of an area where we're kind of looking
Okay.
to practice slash live, and we're flexible within that area, I guess.
Okay, good. So this opportunity that you brought to us, is that within that area? Did you drum that up from looking at brokers and that? Or
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very well. So tell me a little bit about how you came to it and what interested you about it, where your head's at with it currently, and just kind of describe it, what's it look like?
So one of the things that, to be honest, so I don't know if I want to backstory too much, but basically, I grew up surfing, and so the beach
Cool.
surfing is a big part of my life. And I wish it wasn't that way, because then I'd be happy living in all sorts of different places. But
It's pretty restrictive, yeah.
that's, yeah. So we were like, we want to be over there, and looking at practices that are on the beach or close in that area. They're very pricey, and it's a
Beachfront
very,
property, Bert?
well, in that area, several miles. So it's competitive. And so I was like, man, I don't know
Mhm.
if I could do that right away. And so this stuck out to me because it's 20 minutes from the beach,
Mhm.
and which is funny because it's considered a more rural farmy area because it's just 20
Yeah,
minutes inland,
okay.
and it's a town that's growing quite a bit. That wasn't really on my radar until I saw this posting by a broker. And so then when I started looking into it more, I was like, oh, this would be rad, because you could work over there. It's only a 20-minute commute, 30 minutes, and then you could still live close to the beach. And then you
You
Yeah.
have
even
the,
use the word rad.
I know, he's
What a
such a
surfer.
surfer Bert.
yeah, that's right.
That's gnarly, dude.
Must be
It's
so
funny
rad
because
living next to the beach.
yeah, I don't even notice sometimes that I use words that I guess other people don't. But
Nah, I'm just giving you a hard time, Bert. Keep going.
Um, so yeah, I saw the opportunity that it's not quite as competitive as right around those beach areas, and it's growing,
Okay.
and the population is a little more of what I think that I would like to treat, instead of real ritzy, finicky patients that are
Yeah,
just real picky. These are
okay,
more, I feel like, down to earth, the more normal type of people that I would like to treat. So that's
okay.
when that kind of came up, and I was like, this would be a cool opportunity because there's room for growth. It's not as competitive, and I could still have the lifestyle I want.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So tell me a little bit about this practice in particular. What are the sort of, bones of it?
So it's doctor's retiring. He sounds like he's been there for 30 years. He's had it remodeled. I can't remember, several years ago. It's got 4 ops, but it says there's room for expansion.
What does that
Um,
mean? What was the room for expansion?
So I asked, never got a solid answer, so I don't
Okay.
know. But he
So what
owns the building and the land, so I'm guessing that just means if you wanted to, he would let you expand. That's my assumption.
okay, fair.
Um, there's he only works. The big thing that I was looking at is he works 1.5 to 2 days a week, and yet it's still bringing in over 600,000. Um,
Yeah.
he's paying his staff way too much, which was a negative that I saw.
Okay.
Um, so I was just trying to kind of weigh the pros and cons. Basically, that's why I was reaching out. It's like I see some good things, and then I also see some things that could be. I don't know if they're too bad or too detrimental to overcome. Those type of
Sure.
things.
Yeah, so one thing that really interested me looking at it, is you said that he was working 2 days a week and doing, like, 700K.
Yeah.
Uh, that's pretty productive. George, did you feel a similar way about that?
Yeah, I
What
think
were your
two
thoughts?
things that so we do these little debriefings about the practice before we get on air because we have the information and we're just like, okay, make sure Tyler and I are on the same page, and we always are, and then you come talking about it, and I don't know it. Every time we've done the debriefing, we're like, nope, and then we come on air and we're like, you know what? I don't know. So here's the thing with you, Bert, is I'm gonna answer the question, but you're super specific.
Mhm.
Like, I mean,
It's
I
true.
had Jamie Amos on our show, and he was like, the only reason I'd ever buy a practice if I was a surfing dentist and I was buying it from a surfing dentist. That was the analogy he used. And I find it funny that we have a surfing dentist on there. And it's important to you to be in the super tight knit area where it's hard to find available practices.
Yeah.
So I think we have to, before we keep going, we have to assess the standpoint of we're looking at this
Mhm.
practice as a if it can work, we have to make it work.
And it's a life opportunity, he's trying to
Yeah,
get in the
it's
right
more
place.
than a
Yeah,
practice. It's a way of
absolutely.
life.
Yeah,
And so we can't look at it just as the practice. And I think that to me is the curveball you threw that we weren't expecting
yeah,
was, because I think the initial email you asked me was like, this is doing 1.5, 2 days a week. If I do 4, it should grow, right? And um I looked at him like, dude, this guy's doing 700K on 1.5, 2 days a week. Like, I don't know if we're going to be like growing a whole lot if we open up
mhm,
4 because he's doing something really crazy in those 1.5 and 2 days a week. And so that
absolutely.
was the
Yeah,
question I want to ask is what is he doing in 1.5 or 2 days a week that's leading to the amount of revenue that practices get full time?
yeah, yeah.
Well, that's right. I asked for the procedure by ADA code to try and figure that out. Never got it. But they sent me several day sheets. It was like several months worth of day sheets. And so I was looking through them and I was wondering, is this guy just doing like full mouth cases all day long? And is that why he's making so much money?
Yeah.
But from what I was looking at, that didn't seem to be the case. I mean, he did a fair amount of crowns, but it wasn't anything crazy. But part of it was I was wondering if because he does a lot of fee for service, it was like 65% fee for service,
I saw
35%
that. Yeah,
PPO. It's like maybe he's
His fees
just
could just be high.
it's huge.
yeah, I mean, they didn't seem I think he gave me a sample of their fees, and they didn't seem crazy. So, I
Yeah,
was trying to figure out the same thing because from
I think it
what
was like
all the
1350 or 1400 for a crown, I think is what it said on
yeah,
the
it was
So
1450 or something.
yeah.
here's the thing that when we look at this, I'm looking at your hygiene percentage. So we're
Right.
at about 15% preventative, which isn't a full hygiene percentage because that doesn't include your diagnostic,
Mhm.
right? So we are kind of sampling, but like that puts us at maybe 22, 23% hygiene is kind of what I would throw that number at
Yeah.
and
That's
just
yeah.
estimating.
He reported 21, yeah.
Yeah, 21. Okay, there we go. Wow. Hey, you
Yeah.
know, guessing George. Anyway, but that to me it feels maxed out.
Yeah.
So I think that was the point I wanted to make sure we made was look, you're pretty much going if you walked into this practice, you're pretty much reproducing what he's doing on 4 days a week. You're not growing this thing.
Mhm.
That's kind of the realization that because of the hygiene percentage.
Yeah.
So I don't know how he's doing the schedule. I don't know what he's doing, but it might be a give and take, right? You might do less big cases, but more small cases because you're checking more hygiene. But I think it'll be about the same. I don't think you can expect to be doing a million because you're working 4 days a week. I think you're going to do about 700K as well. And so looking at this practice, I think you have to look at it at historical numbers being accurate to you working 4 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you think even with adding procedures, because he's not doing any ortho, any endo, or any, well, oral surgery, but that's not like a big
So let's go back to the hygiene percentage 21% hygiene. So it's like your batting average, right? He hits doubles and triples. You're gonna hit more singles and doubles, but you guys are gonna score the same number of runs. So you might, I think you guys will end up at about the same hygiene percentage, and so you're just gonna do it differently than him.
yeah.
He's doing something special. We don't know what that is,
He's selling
Right.
some CBD oil
but
or
he's running 4 days of hygiene
yeah,
and still has a hygiene percentage of 21%.
So
yeah.
he only has one hygienist. So one
Right.
chair is doing
Yeah.
One
hygiene.
hygiene chair.
So like
Yeah.
Yeah.
this guy checks 2 days of hygiene a week and he produces like 550 or 530 a year.
Yeah.
Like he would be producing a million something off of one hygienist. Like I just don't think you can walk in and replicate that type of performance.
Yeah.
That's so beyond industry standard.
Yeah.
And so you're going to do it differently. You're going to check a lot more hygiene and produce the same as him,
Right.
and if you do more, great. But I wouldn't walk in with that expectation. You're going to reproduce this differently.
Yeah.
But what does he do? So this guy, does he have another office, or what's going on the other that
Yeah.
You.
He has another office that's like
Yeah.
15 miles away that he works 2 days in.
Okay. So he works 2 days in each office.
And he sold the other one already.
Okay, he did.
Yeah. It was kind of in
How?
the higher end one in a more ritzy area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And when did he sell?
Maybe 2 or 3 months ago.
Oh, okay, cool. All right.
What's
I'm not
going through your
concerned
mind
then.
with that, George? What's going through?
Because I went back to look at the collections. So there was a jump between 2017 and 2018. He
Mhm.
went 640, 720. And so I was thinking maybe he sold the second one back then, and then he got some patients flowing
Both
into this
patients.
practice.
Yeah.
But if he sells them both in succession, then I'm not worried about patients
Okay.
jumping between one or the other, because there's two new people. You either see the new guy here or the new guy there. I mean, it's not a super big concern. And 15 miles in California is a while. That's not like a close commute.
Right.
So I wouldn't be super concerned about it.
Yeah.
So if you were to, so I understand this practice is kind of unique, but if you were
Mhm.
to look at a practice that was in the same situation as far as doctors only working 2 days, but they're producing more of like a 200 or whatever, 200,000,
Mhm.
then you would see that and be more like, okay, I could definitely grow on that. Or are you really fixating on the hygiene production to
Hygiene
figure
percentage.
that out? Yeah.
So I look at it like when I see a dentist, I mean, I don't like actually see a hygiene percentage above their head, but more or less, there is a hygiene percentage above our heads. That is what we operate at. That is, you put us in a practice and we normalize what is our hygiene percentage. Like, how much are we wringing the towel? And this guy's walking around with like a 11% hygiene, and he just has hygiene there that he's not. I mean, how is he not checking half of the patients? I that seems weird to me.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
but he's walking around with teens hygiene percentage, 12 to 18, something in there. That is his hygiene percentage if he has a full schedule and he's checking all the exams. And I would call that not reproducible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what makes this reproducible for you is the fact that there are those extra hygiene days and those extra hygiene exams where you can make up that difference.
Right.
So
Right.
now, if the way it would look, so you're asking, in what situation could I? So if this practice was 38% hygiene, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the situation where we look at it and we say, okay, we're going to be able to 4 days more doctor capacity. We can use that now.
Yeah.
But you sent me this practice, and you're like, with 4 days, am I going to do more dentistry? And I'm looking at it like, there's no more dentistry to do. So no, like, you're just going to do the same amount of dentistry in more days. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
isn't a joke, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
does he have staff that go between both offices, like assistants or something?
I'm not sure. Not sure.
Okay.
I
Okay.
would look into that, because if there's an assistant that's stable there, because you want to let's look at your staff costs now, because it seems like that was a concern. So
Well, yeah,
talk
there
about
was,
the concern with staff.
I mean, looking at the spreadsheet, it was 35%. But just looking at the hourly, his assistants, one was getting $40 an hour, another was 30. And I talked to a lot of people in their area to see, what the average is. And so he's just way, way over that
Way over.
average.
Long term
Yeah.
people probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know he has a daughter that's working as the front desk, and she seems to be getting paid a good amount. And so that was just one of the red flags besides the hygiene,
Mhm.
because you'd hate to walk in and say, hey, you all need to take pay cuts.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
But
that's what you're paying for. That's your goodwill
I
there.
did see that daughter's income, and I mean, no matter what happens, no matter who buys this practice, most likely that's not going to remain the same,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think this is where, so it's funny because we're going back. We have questions that we want answered, right? Like, predictably, how are realistic staff costs? Like, are we actually going to be paying a daughter 70 grand? Like,
Right. Probably not.
Like, that's your daughter, not mine. Like, I mean, realistically, like, I don't think that could be the expectation of any buyer.
Right. And to be honest,
Um,
I don't even know if she was planning on staying. It didn't mention.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe she doesn't stay, but I think, and then the assistants, right? I think you need to genuinely make that decision. But this goes back to the surfing dentist.
Mm-hmm.
You're an inflexible buyer,
Somewhat.
so I
There's
mean,
some flexibility. It's not like
Is
this is the only practice. I'm
it?
sure
but
there'll be others.
Yeah.
but I mean,
As far as surfers go, you're pretty uptight about this here.
like, yeah, like,
I'm kidding.
I mean, a 30-mile area
Yeah, it's
in
tough.
California is that's about as tight. I mean, I was a 30-mile area in Phoenix, and I was very limiting myself,
Yeah,
and I knew that. But I think you need to kind of own that, and that's okay. I'm not judging you. Like, I did the same thing. Priorities in life.
right.
So it's like you're picking living where you want to live for the next 30 years and having some initial staff turnover.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So when George said to you that you would more or less be doing, in one way or another, what the selling doc is doing and making a similar amount of money, did that dissuade you from this opportunity at all? And I mean, what were your expectations? I mean, I know you were expecting to grow it, but the idea that you couldn't grow it much more, that it's already been maxed out, does that, what does that do to, your feeling about this opportunity in particular?
Yeah, definitely is not what I was looking for. Just because the
Yeah.
overall take-home money, the salary was just very low. It's
You're not happy.
basically
Yeah.
what you could make as an associate.
Owning a
And
job.
so, yeah, so it's like, well, why would I take on the extra burden, stress, all of that to be an associate? So
So let's throw that number out there for our audience. What was it, like upper 100s, right?
Mhm.
it was like I think I'm looking at it right now, it's like 132 or something like that. If
Yeah, and
you,
we might slice 20 grand off of it with some staff reconfiguring and reconfiguring overhead.
Sure.
So realistically, right, you're looking at like a maybe 140 to 160 range
yeah,
as an owner of this practice where you want to live. I think that's a good expectation to walk in with.
Yeah.
yeah.
So that doesn't appeal to you?
I mean, not in a huge way, just because
Yeah.
looking at
Versus just having a
everything,
job. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
and looking at as far as the price, because when we're looking at, for what the value of the practice, and this just might be the market specifics of this, of where it is in that area, because it sounds like it's on the higher end of what the range should be for the listing price. But and like I said, I think it's probably just because of where it is in Southern California that it can probably sell for a higher amount. So I don't know. That's, to be honest, I don't envision myself that being the living and the salary that I want to go
Yeah.
home with every year.
Yeah.
You go into
Yeah.
dentistry thinking that you'll be able to make more, have a more comfortable
Of
living.
course.
And so,
Yeah.
no, I wouldn't say that. And I want to say this: I went into this I'm not emotionally attached to this practice.
Good.
So that's why I wanted to just get straightforward answers and your opinions, because
Good.
I'm not trying to beg you guys to say, no, you should do this, please do it. Because I'm totally fine with saying no, that this isn't the right
Okay.
practice.
Well, that's not nearly as fun for us, Bert.
I know.
Yeah. So,
I'm sorry.
but like, here's can I kind of give you a couple next steps?
Yeah.
I still think you're not ready to say no or yes.
Okay.
I think you need to figure out the staff situation and accurately project an income. I mean, what if it's 180? Are you saying yes? Or does it have to be above 200 for you to say, like, what is your has to
What's
be
your
above
number?
X?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your number? How far off are we?
Um, so to be honest, 180 would be closer, but I've always imagined around 200 or over 200.
Over 200K a year. Yeah, this probably is not it.
Right.
You're not walking in making that, right?
And I'm fine working, making not as much right away, and then being able. I just want the
Okay.
ability to grow and
Yeah.
continue to grow.
And that's the point I wanted to make. This is a starting point. This is not your end point. And I want to get you. So you as a buyer, I think I've said it 3 times now. You are particular about where you want to live, and you're like, it's saturated, but I know I can make a killing. Correct. But in a saturated area, everything is harder. So I'm in a saturated area. I love practicing in a saturated area because I want to live here.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't change it for the world because I'd have to live somewhere else. But everything is more difficult. So acquiring the practice is more difficult, growing the practice is more difficult, and everything. So everything is possible. It is more difficult. So when you have something, this I would rate this, considering where it's located, solid B. This is a B opportunity. It's not an A. You're not walking in with everything you want, but it has maybe enough of the things you want to make it worthwhile to say, you know what, if there an avenue to grow this thing, what's the new patient flow like? Where am I going to get new patients from? How can I grow hygiene? I don't like the fact that it doesn't have a 5th op. For me, I view that as a major downside because running 2 hygiene out of 4 ops is challenging.
Right.
But you know, I would give this a B, and I think it's up to you to decide. Do I think I'm going to find something better in this area? Maybe, maybe not. How long am I willing to wait? Because if you get in this practice, right, what if you don't find something for another year? Then you could have potentially grown this practice in a year and be further ahead than you would be if you had associated for a year.
Yeah.
So I'm not, ironically, I thought this was going to be you're begging me to say yes to this practice and I'm shooting it down. And I'm finding it's like, I feel like maybe you're getting a little too discouraged, a little too quick.
Okay.
And let's see it through.
Yeah.
Let's see it all the way through. And let's
Yeah.
look at the situation it's in its totality. And because I like what you said about the population you're serving. Like that's a big piece that we're missing here. And like this is a population that you could like serving. This could be like a little maybe not as saturated niche in where you want to live. So I think if you go in, what if we can get this into cash flow to like 160, 170, and then you go in and grow? I think I honestly think it should be seen through all the way and see if you can start there and if there's an avenue to grow. I don't
So,
know.
for your opinion, what would be the next steps then for me?
Clarity on all the things that we've already mentioned, right? You need to go back and need to figure out what is going on with the staff and then ask yourself, what could I hire an assistant for? Am I willing to fire an assistant and hire a new one at market pay or tell her like, look, like maybe, right? We don't recommend this. I don't recommend walking in and changing somebody's compensation, but if it's worth it for you, then if it's worth it for you, then you might be willing to do that. And it's not the end of the world, right? Maybe she's been there for like a really long time and all the patients love her. It might be a bigger issue, especially if it's fee for service. But I'm just saying, figure out, I want to have clarity on how much am I making now, right? More information on staff costs and if the daughter is expecting to get paid 70 grand a year or not,
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff. Clarity there. Clarity on the compensations of everybody involved. And then also let's look at, moving forward, what would have to be done to make it cash flow more? And is that something I think I'm willing to do either in the growth department or in the cutting expenses department? And ask yourself what I'm willing to do for this opportunity and what I'm not.
Okay, I'm writing those down.
Good.
This is being recorded, by the way.
And released in 6 weeks when it's very timely.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might be a while
Yeah.
till I hear it again.
Yeah, it will be. And then, I think that's where I'd start, and I would see it through and then decide. But I think,
Yeah. So, I mean, how does that sound to you, Bert?
Yeah, no, I like that because when you first were telling me that it wasn't going to grow, then to be honest, I was just thinking, well, then I probably don't want to do it. But if you're saying that you don't think it'll grow right away, but has the ability to maybe further down the line, then I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
right. I mean, nothing is never going to grow. Like, I mean, we do practice ownership coaching. What if we told somebody, oh, no, your practice is doomed never growth. Like that would be
You're
horrible.
maxed out. We'll see you again next week.
Well, I know
We'll
you
see you
guys
again never.
you
Yeah,
guys have
there's no
talked
growth
about
possible.
like having a ceiling, right, on a practice,
Yeah.
like where you've reached the ceiling. So that's where I'm like, well, maybe a certain practice can only do so much because of the limitations in the practice. I guess
So for a solo, that's like 1.5.
and you're just
I'll
saying
never tell a
in
solo doc under $1 million that there's no room to grow.
with 4 chairs, you're saying despite the number of ops.
Yeah, I think easy 1.2.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's some growth potential there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. It's just in this practice, due to hygiene percentage, the growth is slower. It's through patient flow.
Right.
It's not like you're going to walk in and diagnose a bunch and all of a sudden it's going to grow overnight, right? It's not that type of growth. It's patient flow growth. It's going to be slower,
Right.
but it's possible.
Right. Because of this practice, they said they're getting like maybe 2 new patients a month. So the new patient flow is pretty non-existent.
Yeah. So they're losing net patients per month.
Really? Yeah. It's shrinking.
Yeah. I mean, I guarantee they lose more than 2 patients a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably losing like 20.
And I don't want to, prop up this argument as, either it's this practice or you and your wife don't get to go back home and surf on the weekends. Ultimately, I mean, you haven't been the practice search all that long. And granted, you are looking in sort of a smaller area, but I mean, have you looked into any, off market strategies as to maybe finding some other opportunities that could be lying in wait, not necessarily on the market yet?
So that was my next step.
Okay.
That was kind of I've gotten some contact info of some sales reps, and so that was where I was going to start within the next
Okay.
couple of days. Was going to start contacting
Yeah.
them and see what's out there.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you should still keep panning the river too. I mean, there might still be some other opportunities, and it might be worth it, just to give it some more time to see if something else, surfaces. And if it doesn't, then you can, work with it however you want to. I kind of see you at a crossroads in your career where you kind of feel maxed out where you're at now, and where you're wanting to go. And so obviously you're trying to figure out what's, the most expedient but best path forward. And I think it's just going to be a matter of doing a little more research and figuring out, what different paths actually mean. It's either this opportunity or it's something that's, kind of waiting for you. And I would definitely entertain as many avenues as you can to find all those possible opportunities to know what your options really are.
And I'm going to use a big word like Tyler, concurrently, meaning at the same time. So we'll look at this opportunity and answer our questions while also at the same time finding more deals.
Yes.
It's not a see this one all the way through, then go find other deals. It's right now you do both.
We can whole ass 2 things. To make another Parks and Rec reference.
That's right. Well,
whole ass 2 things. Oh, that's awesome.
Can I ask you another question? I don't know if we're too short on time.
No, we're doing great on time.
Not at all.
This is a 1 episode deal. We're doing great.
Yep. Would you, at this point, knowing what we know, would you think that it's possible then to negotiate the sale price at all, or would you just leave it as is?
Okay, so if you cash flow $500 more per month, is that going to change your life?
No, I know we're not being too nitpicky, but I'm just wondering if you think that's even if that's a viable option for this, or if it's worth it or not.
Is it ever worth potentially spoiling that opportunity?
So here's the thing:
like how much could it really be?
All of the things that we don't like about the practice aren't going to change with a lower sales price.
That too, yeah.
So all we're going to do is like, okay, so let's say if you tell a broker, like, what are you thinking? Oh, 500, like it's listed for 565 or like 500. Like that'd be a huge discount, right? That would really hurt the seller. That would save you like $700 a month.
Yeah.
Like it's not even meaningful to you, but really meaningful to the seller. The seller is like, wow, I just gave my practice away to this guy and I took this huge, like all of my broker fees I now have to repay. Like, that's a huge deal to the seller. And to you, it's like, just like I don't have one less monthly expense, but it doesn't change anything else. Like $8,000 a year to like totally screw the seller in their mind is like, it doesn't make your situation really any better as a buyer, and it just makes theirs much worse. So
well, yeah, when you put it like that, it makes you seem like a jerk.
think you are.
I know.
I
I
mean,
still can tell.
You would be.
you know what I mean? Like, this guy has worked his whole career and built this practice that's worth this, and it doesn't cash flow. That's the problem. And cutting the purchase price by a substantial amount, over 10%, is really impacting their retirement plans because now the broker fee, taxes, all that stuff, like they got to pay that from a lower amount that, that amount that you cut would have paid for all that stuff, or not all that stuff, but at least the broker fee. And it really doesn't make a whole big financial impact in your life over 10 years, that amount, but it really does for the seller. And it doesn't make the opportunity really that much better for you. It
Right.
still has all the same problems it had before. You've just now pissed off a seller in the process. And so I'm big on, right, if it doesn't make sense at the current purchase price, the purchase price that it makes sense at probably isn't one that you want to even
order.
put on paper.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Well, I appreciate you bringing down my self-esteem and, giving me good information at the same time. I like it.
no, I'm harsh on that point because I get it all the time. Right, even the COVID webinar, like I talked about, I'm like, hey, look, like you could potentially get a discount on this practice. And like everyone wanted to keep talking about the discount when I just like wanted to mention it as a possibility and like move on from it. It's more about the availability of practices. I was, oh, but the discount. I'm like, the discount doesn't really matter. Like,
It's
it
just
really
whenever
doesn't.
you barter and you bring the price down, it just makes you feel
Feels
better
good.
as a person. You're just like,
I
yes,
know. And that's what I'm
just
saying.
nailed
Price
it.
is an emotional thing. And from the seller, right? I got full ask for my practice. That feels good.
Yeah.
Right.
And why not make the seller feel good? And then you can feel good saying, I got the right office. Like, that's what I want you to feel good about. Not I screwed over this old guy. Nice.
Jeez.
Like,
Yeah.
who wants to say that? I mean, I asked my sellers, how much do you want? They said number. I gave them number. Done.
Yeah.
That's negotiating with George. And I would like it to be like that for more people because it'll have a smoother transition and it won't affect your life, right? Focus on the right practice, not the right price.
Yeah. No geriatric abuse. Got it.
Geriatric abuse is not tolerated on the Shared Practices podcast.
Got it.
Thanks for letting me roast you on that one. That's fine.
He needed to get you didn't really quite let him roast the practice that you brought up, so he had to find something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some roasting energy in me.
He found some kindling right here at the tail end. He's gonna get it.
Glad I could give you an outlet for that.
But do you have any other questions for us or anything you wanted to run by us? Do you feel like we've helped you out a lot?
Yeah, I do. I'm just trying to figure out basically if I was to move forward, what the ways to make it look better and to have the practice be better. Because I know you talked about how the EBITDA is below what your annual debt service is. So then how can you? Seems like if you can't add hygiene, then that's going to be a struggle to do that.
Mm-hmm. So your initial route is controlling staff costs. That is your initial route to profitability immediately, which is the hardest route to profitability immediately.
Right.
And so you have to ask yourself, is that something I'm willing to do? I would go take a look at some more practices in the area, even if they're not in the area you want to live in. Some solos, see what they're cash flowing at. And, California has higher overhead. So see, like, if I find another opportunity, how much am I most likely going to cash flow? I think you're going to find the high 100s is pretty much where you're going to start.
Yeah.
So go take a look at 3 or 4 other practices in your state, maybe even potentially your area, if you could find them, even though they might not be the area you want to live. Just see what those dentists are, see what the after debt cash flow is going to be in those offices to see what's out there.
Yeah.
From a cash flow perspective.
Okay. I like it.
All right. Surfing Burt
So
Macklin.
hold on. One more thing I'm going to throw at Burt before we close off.
Okay.
So we do pre-owner coaching, and a lot of pre-owner coaching is saying no to deals for clients. And is this common? That look on your face right now of disappointment and like, oh man, I was really hoping it would work. That is being a pre-owner. And it is, but then when it works, the smile, the joy, the practice ownership, it's all worth it. But that process of like, I can't tell you, I feel like pre-owner coaching was telling people to say no to deals all the time. Like that's it, and that is the majority of it. So don't feel like you are unique in that, this has issues, but also, there's still hope. So I just don't be discouraged. This is very normal part of being a buyer, is having to pass up on deals that you get excited about.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I keep waiting for you guys talk about that when you find the deal and it's the right deal, and then you just want to jump on it. So I'm just kind of waiting, because right now I feel like I've seen several. I'm like, maybe that could be the deal, but it hasn't. Looking at the numbers, I'm not like, yes, this is the one, and I want to get it right now. And
Yeah,
maybe
for you, this is not the practice. This is the area.
Yeah.
Right. That's the thing you would jump on in this one. It's not, this practice is not something I would jump on ever. It is the area, the opportunity to live here, that I would have to jump on to own this practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might be one no closer to your yes at worst, and perhaps you've already found something you can work with, and we're going to see that. And I want to follow your story and kind of see what else you uncover here. So I'm very interested.
Yeah, when you end up buying a practice, come back to Practice Underwater and use the same name, Burt Macklin, so that we can follow along. I want the same aliases to be on multiple shows.
Yeah,
so we can follow along with Mr. Macklin.
Okay, I like it.
All right.
I like it.
All
well,
right.
Thank you. This is really, like I said, I wasn't looking for a yes. I was just looking for, if it's a no, then at least I want to be able to know that it's a no. So I appreciate it.
And you learned how to look at a practice better with this opportunity.
Yeah.
And so did our audience. So we appreciate you for coming on.
All right. Thank you, guys.
We appreciate it.